Chapter 313, Ambush on the Return Journey. This time, Zhu Tui finally understood what it meant for people to die for money and birds to die for food. Cheng Mo carried 2 more repulsive force-flying skateboards with a load of 120 kilograms. When they returned to the camp more than 10 kilometers away, they immediately fell down when they reached the camp. If he had not replenished himself with 2 level E energy restoration elixirs, Cheng Mo would have collapsed. Zhu Tui, who had a weight of 70 kilograms, was also having a hard time. His stamina had decreased drastically, almost to the limit. What surprised Zhu Tui even more was that as his physical strength decreased, his mind power seemed to have decreased to a certain extent. He personally experienced that the drastic decrease in physical strength would reduce his mind power to a certain extent. This made Zhu Tui determined that he had to spend some time improving his physical fitness when he returned. Physical fitness did not seem to be of much use normally, but it became very important when one reached the limit. After resting for a while, Zhu Tui called for a short meeting while they were eating. The cooling effect of the storage box in the flying car is not strong. The corpse and blood of the mutated fire ape cannot be preserved for a long time. Tomorrow morning, we will do our best to search for the last mutated plant for the Gongling's clearing mission. After completing the mission, we will return immediately. Are there any problems? Zhu Tui asked. There was naturally no problem with this arrangement. Also, I've reflected on the 2 battles in the wilderness today and our method of survival and vigilance. I feel that I still have to correct something, Zhu Tui suddenly said. What point? Cheng Mo, Gong Ling, and Zuo Qingqing looked at Zhu Tui. In the future, when we go on clearing missions, unless we stay in a hidden space like a cave, we can't start a fire at night. As he spoke, Zhu Tui gently pressed his hands together. The fire that was still burning was immediately extinguished, and smoke rose. The eternal fire in the night is actually telling passers-by that there are people here. It would be a disaster if we were discovered by someone who is powerful and has evil intentions, Zhu Tui said. Cheng Mo, Gong Ling, and Zuo Qingqing nodded at the same time. They had been growing rapidly over the past 2 days. Zhu Tui only needed to say a point for them to understand the importance of this. It might be very cold at night. Gong Ling was suddenly a little worried. As a girl, she was more afraid of the cold. That's indeed a problem, but Gong Ling, you don't have to worry. You can hug your legs to warm up. Cheng Mo replied seriously. Hug your legs for warmth? Gong Ling was a little confused. She tried to bend her body and hug her legs. Is that so? Why don't I feel warm? You're so stupid. Did I say to hug yourself? I asked you to hug little Tui. Legs in Chinese are actually called Tui. Hug little Tui. Gong Ling was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Her pretty face instantly turned red. She picked up a wooden stick and threw it over. Cheng Mo, you're bad. I've hugged him before. Little Tui is really warm. Get lost. Don't disgust me. Who's ever who get you? Zhu Tui had a look of disdain. Laughter instantly rang out in the temporary camp. The tension and pressure from the day began to slowly dissipate. At night, after resting, although Zhu Tui was very tired, he did not stop cultivating. First, he had to cultivate his energy field. He could have activated the last 2 genetic base points of the mountain formula today, but he did not do so. He had consumed a lot of mind power today, and there was less than 70% left. If he really did that, his mind power would probably exceed the warning line. After thinking about it, Zhu Tui decided to cultivate the stab formula. Cultivating abilities related to the original quantum frequency of a mountain in the wild was much better than cultivating on the small mountain in the School of General Senses. With the experience he gained from practicing the mountain formula, Zhu Tui was now more familiar with the practice of the stab formula. The stab formula was the same as the mountain formula. He first visualized it, but different from the mountain formula, the stab formula visualized a moving diagram. It was a dynamic visualization image. The invisible power in the earth gathered on the surface of the ground, then instantly condensed into an earth spike that stabbed out like lightning. The speed of this stab was visualized as fast as possible. In fact, it was not difficult for most sensory-type cultivators to visualize this step. After sensing the original quantum frequency of the mountain, it was not difficult to use the original quantum frequency of the mountain to materialize the visualization of the Earth spike. Even those with poor aptitude could do it with a little effort. The difficulty lay in the continuous grinding. After visualizing it, the spikes that were materialized from the original quantum frequency of the mountain were essentially changes in the original quantum frequency of the mountain. The ownership belonged to the original quantum frequency of the mountain. Zutui could only influence but not control it. If he really happened to encounter an Earth element supernatural being using an Earth spike, he would be able to accurately affect it. However, it could not become Zutui's own superpower. If he wanted to obtain superpowers like the Earth spike, he would have to activate the relevant genetic base points. It was just like the mountain formula. Only by activating a portion of the genetic base points of the mountain formula in the location of the spleen could one materialize a supernatural ability. It was the same for the stab formula. If it were any other student, they would have to visualize this stab formula tens of thousands of times or even tens of thousands of times before they could activate the relevant genetic base points and obtain the extraordinary power of stab formula. However, Zutui's illusory introspection had helped him to avoid a more time-consuming process. 40 minutes later, Zutui found the genetic ability chain of the stab formula at the location of his spleen in the illusory introspective state. There were only 6 genetic base points on the genetic ability chain of the stab formula. Zutui consumed 2 bottles of level E energy restoration elixirs in succession and activated 2 genetic base points of the stab formula. A few breaths later, an extremely soft sound of something breaking through the air 40 meters away was mixed in the night wind. Almost no one heard it. Zutui was very excited. It was another superpower. Within the range of his mental perception, he could easily conjure Earth spikes with the mountain's original quantum frequency. It was even more stealthy than an Earth element superhuman's Earth spike. If this was combined with Zutui's time distortion, his future enemies would be traumatized if he stabbed them from the bottom of their feet. Of course, he had only activated 2 genetic base points so far, and it was an energy attack. Its lethality was still limited. However, after activating the complete genetic ability chain, he could switch between reality and illusion at will, whether it was the mountain formula or the stab formula. He was not allowed to continue training when he's in the wild. Zutui activated the genetic base points of the stab formula. He fell into a deep sleep when his mind power was almost 50% depleted. The next morning, everyone, including Zutui, was a little tired. Even though Zutui's sleep quality was extremely high, he was still mentally and physically exhausted after searching in the wilderness for days. He was still one step away from completing the mission. In the morning, Zutui had randomly chosen a direction and continued their search. They searched for the last mutated plant needed for the Gongling's clearing mission. Miraculously, they found the mutated plant that Gongling needed in the direction that Zutui had chosen in less than 2 hours. Everyone was delighted and marveled at their good luck. Only Zutui silently thanked Ah Huang. The reason why he was able to find the last mutated plant so accurately was because of the reconnaissance hummingbird sent by Ah Huang. Ah Huang, as a high-level artificial intelligence, analyzed a few locations that were highly suspected to have mutated plants that Gongling needed through the vast number of videos sent by the reconnaissance hummingbird. This morning, Zutui went straight to these highly suspicious locations to search. He easily found his target. He had reached the final step of the clearing mission he had to do. At noon, Zutui and the others returned to the disguised camp. They hurriedly ate some fast food and eagerly prepared to return. This was especially so for Gongling and Zuo Qingqing. They had been sweating in the wilderness for 4 to 5 days, but they still could not shower. Even they were starting to despise themselves. Gongling was so happy that she jumped twice on the spot when she saw that she could return. That was really turbulent. He packed up the camp and loaded the supplies. The frozen storage boxes of the 2 repulsive force flying cars and the miscellaneous storage boxes were filled to the brim. Even the 3rd seat was filled with captured repulsive force flying skateboards. This time, he had gained a lot. Both Zootuis and Zuo-Kinking's flying cars were the mainstream three-seater flying cars. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a group of 2 flying cars began to take off and maintain a cruising speed of 800 kilometers per hour. Under normal circumstances, they would be able to leave the Dongan Ridge region at 2 in the afternoon. At around 6 in the afternoon, they would be able to return to the Huaxia Genetic Evolution College and take a hot shower. At 1:45 a.m., the flying cars flew out of the outer Dongan Ridge area and entered the Great Dongan Ridge area. The Great Dongan Ridge was already part of the Huaxia sector. Although the border control of such primitive forests had been relatively lax over the years, the Huaxia sector was still the Huaxia sector. Everyone felt inexplicably at ease. The 4 of them chatted on the public frequency of the flying car. "After I go back, I feel that I have to go to the bathhouse to wash up. It's been so dirty these few days." "Sai, Gongling, Kinking, do you think the 2 of you need help in washing up?" "If you need it, Zhu Tui and I will serve you for free," Cheng Mo said with a smile. "I do," Zuo-Kinking laughed, "but before that, I'll give you an electric bath." Dunt! Boom! Boom! Amidst the laughter, intense explosions sounded in an instant. A ball of silver magnetic light suddenly exploded in front of the 2 repulsive force flying cars. The exploding silver light instantly engulfed the 2 repulsive force flying cars. He did not have the time to say anything. Zhu Tui, who had superhuman reflexes, immediately controlled the repulsive force flying car to dodge. However, in the next moment, Zhu Tui was shocked to discover something. The repulsive force flying car had lost its power.